Hello and welcome to another edition of Childhood Remastered. This is the podcast where we look back at the cartoons and movies and whatnot of our youth to see if they're still worth a damn.
Or not.
Or not, which is far too often the case. I'm Sean.
And I'm Chris.
And today first of all, we're coming to you live from a
guest bedroom at your house.
A guest bedroom at my house.
We did my house with a guest bedroom. Everybody liked the idea of us on a bed together, so we decided to go.
They liked it a little too much, so
yeah.
we're Ricky and Lucying it right now with the two separate beds.
Because why not?
Because I don't trust myself around you.
It is what it is. I'm hard to resist.
So we've been sort of taking a trip as is our wont. We're taking our
through
trip
the
down
whatnot of
through
our
the whatnot,
listing.
exactly. Yeah. And today we're going to be focusing on. We've been sort of taking a trip as.
Well,
as
Sean.
Maybe I just want to double it up. So I'm going to edit that out of the podcast.
Yeah,
but
why not?
You guys at home watching are going to see it.
So what the hell? Why not?
Yeah, why not? So we're taking a trip down the whatnot lane to look at another subject that is near and dear to our hearts, and definitely was when we were kids, and that is the subject of video games.
Because video games are life.
Yeah, video games are life. Chris and I were both. I feel like I can speak for both of us.
Oh yeah.
Chris and I were both very much into video games as kids. It was a big part of our youth. It was a big part of our life. It
still is.
Definitely still is. I not super recently, but I recently bought a Switch and I've been playing it a lot. I actually bought it for Kathy and I've been playing it more. Really, I don't think she's ever played it.
And I'm playing a lot of World of Warcraft
on
a private server.
You're going back to your youth.
I'm going hard. Well, not to youth, but to my early 20s. And I've hooked Kathy into playing private server too. So
yeah, I might.
So I might
end up downloading Warcraft again. I played one time. I played one time for about.
Sean got ganked by a boar.
No, I played one time for about. I want to say like 2 weeks. I got to level 30 and then I got bored. I couldn't do it.
Hell,
I'm not a social gamer.
Oh yeah.
That's the problem. I like single player.
I mean, for the most part, I actually agree with you. My favorite kind of games are not the social stuff. It's the single player format, the one person on an adventure, side scrollers, and
a lot of
that
RPGs.
Kind of stuff. Tons of RPGs, but I did also like a lot of the side scroll beat 'em ups. But the truth is I usually didn't have somebody to play with except for maybe my brother. And half the time our lives were kind of in different places, so we wouldn't really do them together.
Yeah.
So what are some of your earliest memories as far as a system or gaming in general?
Well, I was born in '83, and my my first system is actually a system that I got as it was a gift, not
was it
to
like
me.
A hand-me-down?
No, it was a gift that wasn't to me. My dad actually received, and I don't know who he received it from. My dad received a Nintendo Entertainment System.
Okay.
From I want to say he got it in '86 or '80, somewhere around there, because I was like 3 or 4, and he didn't want it. Or at least he didn't want to put it on the TV in the living room. And I had this massive cabinet TV in my room that I used to watch old movies on,
like the big square ones that sat on the floor that looked like a table.
Yes.
Yeah, my family had one of those too.
So I had one of those, and they hooked it up. I remember learning at a very young age how to connect it to the antenna screws
in the back,
and the little box that was TV and game. And I actually played as a little kid. I played Mario. I played Duck Hunt. We had the Rob Robot. But,
you did?
Yeah, it was like the whole Nintendo.
You were one of those assholes.
But I didn't know how to use it, so I would play Gyromite.
To be fair, nobody still knows how to use those. Those things they're ridiculous.
Yeah,
they don't work.
I would play Gyromite and then get to a point where I would get stuck because you need the robot to do stuff in the game, and then that would be it. I'd be done. I couldn't play it anymore. So we would. So that's what I started on. I started on Mario. I started on Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley. I had the Light Blaster. You could do all those games. So my first real brush with video games was Nintendo. And what's funny is I actually went backwards from that point, because I started with Nintendo, and then at some point, I don't know if it was another gift to someone that I wound up with, but I wound up with an Atari 2600.
Okay.
After I had Nintendo, so I was playing games like
Dig Dug and
Centipede.
Yeah.
And I think we had E.T. And then eventually someone gave me a Atari 5200, which was the garbage one with like the top loader that like closed, and everybody said it was so much worse than the 2600. So
isn't saying much, but
that was my first system. What about you guys? What about you?
I don't know why we got it, but I know that we got a Nintendo when I was maybe 4 or 5, so maybe 87, 88, and I had my little brother who's 2 years younger than I am, and I'm born the same year as you, and so I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and he was 2 or 3 years old, and we got this Nintendo Entertainment System, and we had one of those giant cabinets that stacked floor to ceiling with the wood posts with the big squares that you'd open up and stuff, and that was where a Nintendo set was inside of that thing, and my parents set it up for us. And I think they actually bought, now that I think about it, I think they bought it for us, but I definitely had the kind of parents that they were playing it themselves for sure.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, okay, kids, it's time for bed. I'm like, it's 6 o'clock. And they're like, it's bedtime. And so we go to bed, and then you hear, bum, 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 bum. And we'd sneak out into the hall and be like, Dad's so good at this water level. And my parents like would play. And then I think at some point they just lost their interest. But then we kind of continued, and yeah, my earlier games were Super Mario and Duck Hunt, and we had the track and field with a running pad.
Oh my God! Did you cheat on that one?
Oh,
everybody cheated.
Everybody cheated on that.
Or you used the spoon on the
No,
controller.
I didn't do the spoon. I wasn't spooning it. That's keep that to yourself, Sean. No. We had the running pad, and the regular Nintendo was the first system that we had. I also, at some point, maybe like a year later, had a grandmother who got an Atari 2600.
Huh.
And so then I backtracked and played Atari also. But we had a bunch of the regular Nintendo games. Like I had Ninja Gaiden and Spider-Man and the Sinister Six that I remember playing.
That one.
That game's actually pretty hard. And Wolverine, we had this video game / movie rental place that I've talked about before that we would rent NES games. And I had a lot of memories playing, Silver Surfer, which is god-awfully hard, and G.I. Joe, and all of these games for the NES. We had the Turtle game, and at one point, I think I got Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the NES game.
That game that's a lot of hot garbage games that you're mentioning.
You have no idea. So to name some of the garbage games that we had, I had, looks like we got somebody joining in. Hey, Keith. We had original Ninja Turtles. We had Fester's Quest.
Okay.
We had Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
All right, you're 3 for 3.
Yeah, 3 for 3. We also would rent Silver Surfer and Wolverine, which Wolverine apparently is not supposed to be great, but I don't care. I like that game anyway, so screw you.
Now, did your mom and or dad do the same thing that my mom did whenever they would rent me video games, whether it was Nintendo
or they
Super
used a
Nintendo?
timer?
No.
Oh, okay.
So what would end up happening for me is, because for starting at an early age, I got to be pretty proficient with video games. And my mom would actually get mad at me because eventually Blockbuster had, like, when Blockbuster was around, you could do like a 3-day rental. It was like a 2-day rental. You got the night
beat
of.
It early.
Yeah, you do the night of. So if you rent it on Friday, you get all of Friday night. Then Saturday, then you have to return it Sunday by a certain time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would beat it on like Friday night. And my mom would go, why did we waste the money on a 3-day rental for you to beat the game on the first night? This is a waste of time and money.
And that's when you say, well, at least you didn't spend $60 for the game.
Yeah, well, at the time, I had no idea what video games cost. I was just like, come on, Mom, it's like $5. Let me rent it.
Yeah.
And she was so...
You didn't know?
She would be so upset at me for beating it so quickly.
So one of the other things that I had, I'm sort of rare in that my childhood best friend, his dad owned several arcade cabinets also. And so he had Centipede and Space Invaders and a bunch of other games that I believe he used to have in arcades. And when they needed to be serviced, they would come back and sit in his garage for like 6 months at a time or something. And so I used to have unlimited access to these, as well as a pinball game called Centaur that he grew up with. It is apparently extremely rare and with a lot of money. And I didn't know that until I was an adult. But the game's super cool. It's just like half human, half motorcycle with this half-naked chick riding on the back. And
definitely something a kid should be playing.
Yeah, in 1980s, because F it, why not?
Yeah, why not?
And so I did also have some weird access to arcade cabinets as a little kid, but like unlimited free play. So I got really good at like Frogger and Space Invaders and like some of those kind of games too.
Now let me ask you a question, because this is coming from me and my past. I want to see if you had the same thing.
Because we, for whatever reason, this seems to happen a lot, but we usually do.
So what would end up happening with me is I got really frustrated with games very easily. If I was constantly dying, if I would, anything where the game was freaking cheating, man. Game was totally cheating. What I would end up doing is I would yell at the game. I'd be in my room and I would yell at the game and I'd throw my controller or something because the game pissed me off, and then I'd hear from the other room, "Sean, what? Turn it off. No! Turn it off. You're getting too angry." "No, I'm not going to turn it off."
And then that just makes you angrier.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to turn it off. That the game would win if I turned it off. I need to beat it, Mom.
I know those feels.
I would get so angry. And that just makes me think of how well constructed the Nintendo controllers were, because I would huck those things across the room.
And they would also kind of work those holes into your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the calluses and blisters that you build up. I don't know if you played on an original NES controller.
It's tiny. It's smaller
recently,
than my phone.
But it's not comfortable. There's a lot of sharp, hard plastic on those things.
Yeah, the Famicom actually had a much
more comfortable controller than the NES. Absolutely, it did.
So speaking of,
after NES, were you a Sega or SNES guy?
We were a Nintendo household.
Okay, yeah. I think I've mentioned this before. I went Sega.
We didn't let any of that mongrel Sega race into our home. No, I went Nintendo, Super Nintendo. I skipped N64.
You are an asshole.
But I had a friend that had one, and we played it all the time at his house. Right. So I skipped owning N64.
Okay.
Then I went to GameCube. I didn't own a Wii or a Wii U, and now I have a Switch.
Okay.
But for my formative years, I was absolutely a Nintendo household.
Yeah, I bought my N64 myself.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, with birthday money and money that I'd saved up. Because my parents said, "I'm not buying you this new video game system. If you really want it, you buy it yourself." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I said, "Fine. This is what I want for my birthday. This is what I want for Christmas." And I saved up this money, and I bought myself an N64. And so I had an N64, and I got it myself, and I was so jazzed because I picked, So the SNES I didn't get. My cousins had one, so I got to play those games at their house. But it was always a sort of like I got to jump in and play them, and I didn't get to really deep dive into them until the SNES was a system that was on its way out, and I bought one of those compact versions for like $50.
Oh, nice!
And then I went back and I found a bunch of used games at video game stores, and I bought them all for like $1, $2 a piece.
Yeah.
Because I'm a cheapo, so I went back in bargain basement, bought all these games at the time for a couple bucks each. But Sega was my next big thing.
Sega was your jam.
Sega was my jam. Yeah, and I'll play Chalkin' and Lion King and Sonic and all these games on Sega, Primal Rage and Mortal Kombat. But I would say that
I was a little jealous of the Sega kids, because Sega was allowed much more violent
stuff,
and like Mortal Kombat.
I would say my formative stuff though was all N64. I think the N64 for me was the system that I spent the vast majority of my time on, because I didn't get a PlayStation. So I spent a ton of time with, Ocarina of Time and GoldenEye, and
I spent
Jet Force Gemini.
Way too much time playing GoldenEye and Perfect Dark.
And Perfect Dark. Yeah. And I had a ton of N64 games, tons of them. And I would say that was probably the one that I had like the most fond deep dive memories of. But I have a lot of these memories of me and my brother playing NES and Sega Genesis together. He was like my gaming buddy. Like we beat Ocarina of Time together, as a pair.
Mine was probably Super Nintendo.
Was it?
I played Super Nintendo. And actually maybe N64 a lot. I played Super Nintendo. The games that I still remember the night. Me and my buddy Brian stayed up late one night, like late into the wee hours, and I beat Street Fighter 2 on the hardest difficulty with Ryu. After having been beaten a million times, I finally beat Bison with Ryu, and I was like so ecstatic that I was able to do that. We spent a lot of times playing like the wrestling games too, like Royal Rumble and those stupid shitty games. For N64, absolutely, we played way too much GoldenEye. Choppers only one-hit kills. Nobody could be Oddjob.
No, for us, my brother and I would just do grenade launchers. Grenade launchers only.
Yeah, and then it was that and Perfect Dark. But then also the wrestling games. We played the wrestling games so much.
I discovered this when you and I first started hanging out because I think it was like one of the first times that you came over, and I had found out that you like the wrestling games, and I was like, well, look what I got. And I have the N64 carts still. It was a WCW versus NWO and some of the other wrestle games.
The ones that we played were WrestleMania 2000, and then it was Raw, I think.
Yeah, and I have them, and like we sat there and spent like a good 30 minutes in character creation.
No mercy,
Then we tried to play the games with each other. We got bored, and then we played something else.
This is what would end up happening. We would spend, and it was me and my buddy Brian and Dave, and then Brian's brother Eric. What we would end up doing is we'd do the same thing. We'd spend an hour completely customizing this character. And then we'd make, like, I made a Jesus Christ character.
That's why not.
And then I made, like, I had a weird, like, phase where I was all into Steven Seagal, but, like, sort of ironically. So I made, like, Steven Seagal, and, you could make alternate costumes. So I made different Steven Seagals from, like, different movies.
Oh,
and then
nice.
the fourth alternate was Fat Steven Seagal.
The Fat Steven Seagal is best Steven Seagal.
Yeah, and then we would make stupid characters. Spend all of our time customizing the characters. And then we would play, and then we would get mad at each other. Mostly me. I would get mad, and I would do that. I would rage quit when I was about to get beaten. I'd just pop the game out and like, no! Boom!
No!
So what was your... Talking about rage quitting, what was the most like rage-inducing game for you? What was a game that frustrated you the most?
I have so many.
Pick a good one.
I mean, are we talking about once I got more into adult times, or maybe I'll just
like
go with the kid stuff?
Yeah, at the time.
So I had, and I didn't know anything about it. I saw the commercials for the game Chalkin', and I didn't know that Chalkin' was and still is considered historically to be one of the hardest games ever made, ever. It's a side-scrolling action platformer that is brutally difficult.
Like Ninja Gaiden levels.
To the point where it does not have an ending because they didn't think anybody would beat it. What? I'm not joking. This game is insane.
What a stupid game.
The gameplay itself is really good, but it's so hard. It's like Twitch gaming on drugs. Oh. It's insanely difficult, and I didn't know that. And I just I rented it at the game store. I was like, "Oh, this game's cool." I played the tutorial, and I couldn't beat it, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds fun," and so I bought it. I bought a used version of it, and I was so excited. And to this day, I've never beaten it. That game, screw Chalkin'. Screw it all to hell. That game is so ridiculous. I have a few other ones. Batman, the NES game, which since now as an adult with a Pi, I have gone back and beaten
it.
That game is really, really brutally hard. Just completely unforgiving. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit is impossible to beat. I used Game Genie and couldn't beat it.
That game
either I am beyond retarded.
No, you're not. That game was designed poorly.
No, it's true.
All I ever did in that game was I charged up punches and then I punched people. And then they wouldn't talk to you anymore. They'd be like, "Go away, you horrible man."
Forever until you turn the game off.
Yeah.
The other one, actually, I would say is Ninja Turtles, the dam level.
So mine was going to be Ninja Turtles because I would, on occasion, I would get past that dam level. Because that's level 2! That's level 2!
It's insane.
You get past that level, and then you would actually you'd get to the third level, which involved using the turtle van. But then I'd like run out of missiles, and I'd get run over by the steamroller, and like the game was stupid because you would, when you died as a turtle or when you lost all your life, your turtle was captured, and then you couldn't use them anymore. And then you would have to find, instead of getting extra lives, you would have to find the turtle and rescue them. But you didn't rescue all of them; you only rescued one of them, and then you'd always end up with Raph being the last one that you're going to use.
Who was terrible because he had like the tiny reach.
Yeah, the tiny hitbox. So that one was definitely mine because that game was so frustratingly difficult. It'd be one thing if it was difficult. I can handle difficult, you know, like your Dark Souls type games where you're frustrated because the game is difficult. But like when the game mechanics make the game difficult, that's when you get pissed off. Like sort of like the things in Ninja Gaiden. That was another one. Ninja Gaiden 2 was a hard game. Yeah. Ninja Gaiden in general was a hard game because the enemies respawned if you went too far.
So if you tried to jump and you got hit and it would knock you back, that enemy's back again. And the way that it was pathed, you couldn't get back. I mean, it was ridiculous.
The music that happens when you die, it haunts my memories. Boom, bing, 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 boom.
Some of those older games, though, although they were extremely difficult, they were fair. Like the Mega Man games were hard.
Mega Man 2.
But they were good. Like they were fun to play. And Mega Man X, oh my God, don't even get me started.
That's one of I think that
one of my all-time favorite games.
Yeah, all-time favorite games, but definitely like top 3 on the NES, on the SNES.
That, and then I would say Zelda for SNES. And maybe a couple others maybe may round out my list. But, you know, I had a lot of bad experiences with really crappy and poorly made games. Back to the Future, yeah, that's one of them too. Ghosts and Goblins, yeah, that's bad.
Ghosts and Goblins is a dick game because you have to play through it twice to actually beat it.
Yeah, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. Ghosts and Goblins is just ridiculous. I was going to say I played Superman N64.
That game's just broken.
It is broken, but I didn't know that. I didn't realize it was broken, and I got it. I bought a used copy. And so, like, if you notice the sort of trend here, I had a sort of trend in my earlier times where I'm buying shitty games, and good ones too, but shitty ones, and then not having the money to go out and replace them.
Oh.
And so I get stuck with these crappy games, so that by the time I got into, like, young adulthood, and I had a PlayStation 2, and then kind of moving forward, I became almost overly cautious with games.
Oh.
So then I was like, you know, I'm going to wait until it's used, and I'm going to wait and see if it's any good, and then I'll buy it. And so I
hit up games for less, and then...
Yeah, so now I'm the budget buyer, so I would wait until the games were on sale, and I would only buy the games that were like AAA title games or whatever, and so I would wait. And so a lot of these like kind of off ones I wouldn't buy unless they had really good reviews. Like I remember Katamari Damacy, I bought new, but only because I'd read a bunch of really good reviews, and I was like, okay, you know, I want this game. But it made me sort of an overly cautious gamer, like moving into adulthood. So like now when I play World of Warcraft, it also kind of made me a sort of cautious like MMO player or cautious RPG player. Like I collect everything. I toss nothing in RPGs. So like my inventory,
you're a hoarder.
In my inventory in say Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 9 or 10, my inventory was like 20 screens long because I wouldn't toss anything. I'd sell nothing. I keep everything.
You were one of those people that hated the encumbrance.
I would and I would max out my inventory for like potions, like Chrono Trigger or Super Mario RPG would have maximum number of items. Like I would fill out every slot as much as I could.
Now, if you had to pick a game, I mean, you don't have to pick a game. Just how about a game that stands out in your memory as one that was just really awesome? Super awesome game that you went back and replayed.
That I still go back and play today?
Maybe you still go back and replay. You don't have to, but like maybe...
Oh, no, there are plenty because I have Pi. There are plenty. And because of your phone, you can now download games and download emulators and play them on your phone. And because of that, I would absolutely say Chrono Trigger without a doubt. I will go back. I still go back. I went back and replayed it on my phone and beat it. Did the same thing on the Pi. I play Chrono Trigger maybe once every year, every couple of years. I know another guy that that I sort of grew up with who's like that too. A guy named Josh who loves Chrono Trigger, who lived with us for a couple years when I was younger, and same thing, man. Every time I talk to him, he's like, "Yeah, I'm replaying Chrono Trigger," and my reaction was always, "Oh, that's a good idea. I should replay Chrono Trigger."
Yeah, for me, it's a game that came a little bit later, but still came at a time where I was young enough to have it sort of ingrained in me. Mine is Knights of the Old Republic. It's a computer game, so not like Nintendo.
So if we're
SNES.
going later, then I would also put that in there because I also downloaded and played that on my cell phone. There's a cell phone version you could download and play for a while.
I had a disc that had, it was actually I think it was one disc that had 4 different games on it, 4 different Star Wars games, and I still have it
PC?
somewhere
Yeah.
for PC. And it was Knights of the Old Republic. It was Dark Forces. It was the first Battlefront, like the old one. Where you controlled like it was like an RTS.
Yes.
Then there was Jedi Academy, and I think TIE Fighter. Like there was like 5 games.
Jedi Academy is great.
Oh, I played actually a lot of those old Star Wars games are really ingrained. I remember playing both TIE Fighter and Rebel Assault.
Oh yeah.
With a joystick. I was back when like joysticks were the big thing, and I had like a joystick that you could macro.
Oh, with a button, yeah.
24 buttons down at the bottom, and it looked like a. And the problem that I have is I'm left-handed, so
yeah, I am too.
So the joysticks would come actually built right-handed. They'd have like a contoured grip,
and your hands don't fit,
and it doesn't fit. But I would play Rebel Assault, which was, if you don't know what that game is, it's imagine Wing Commander. If you know what that game is, it's sort of a mix mash of gameplay and pre-recorded, like pre-rendered story video. Like actually, they hired actors to act out the stuff. Yeah. I had another one that I played. Now that I'm thinking about all the PC games, I had Star Trek Starfleet Academy because I was a big Trek kid. And it was
the only way to be.
It was a 5-disc monster that had real actors in it, and you would play through simulations. It was like essentially like a flight simulator type game with like story tree dialogue elements that were mixed in. I remember that one of the first missions you do is you do the Kobayashi Maru, which is
right.
Like if you know Star Trek, it's a classic thing that they do at the Academy.
The unbeatable. It's the unbeatable challenge.
Yeah, the unwinnable scenario where you're either going to die or you're going to lose the mission somehow. Yeah. So in the game, I always remember you could reprogram it just like Kirk did. You could hack the game, the simulation inside the game,
so that you could win
and reprogram it. And I remember one of the way you could reprogram it like a bunch of different ways. You could reprogram it so like because Klingons come and attack your ship. You could reprogram it so the Klingon shields are down, so you can destroy them really fast. Or you can program it so that the Klingons really, really like you. And I always did that one because it was the funniest one, because then you would have these Klingons, these guys in Klingon thing, and they would say, "Oh, the Klingons are attacking the Kobayashi Maru," and you would have the option to hail them, and it's like, they're responding. And they would go like, "Captain, I didn't know it was you. Oh, we are so sorry."
That's awesome.
And then you're like, that's okay. Just
like you made it awkward. Okay.
Yeah. But I loved those games where it was like the pre-rendered, pre-recorded like video that would act out the scenes that you would do, sort of like a live action. What was the game? Dragon's Lair or Space Ace, but it was live action. But Knights of the Old Republic for me was the game that I replayed over and over and over and over, because in my mind that I can think about it, it was the first game where you could have multiple outcomes.
And what you did affected the ending and the story.
You could be good, you could be evil, you could wind up with everybody surviving, you could be super evil and have Zalbar kill Mission and then she kills herself.
Yeah.
You could do all these things. You could convert your like love interest if you were a man, like Bastila. She like falls to the dark side, and you can convert her back to the light side at the end
if you want to.
Or you could kill her, or you could make her your apprentice.
Right.
And there were so many things that you could do.
Yeah.
And then like you could have two lightsabers or a double lightsaber or like a long and a short lightsaber. And it was just so like
it was very immersive as a nerd to have all these options.
As a kid, I was just like, I'm going to be a light side Jedi, but I'm also going to use dark side powers. And like as like a nerdy little kid, I was like, this is the coolest game ever. And I'm still to this day, I am waiting for an official re-release with updated graphics. I would die for that game.
Well,
I would buy it right now.
They did a re-release that had a sort of a graphical smoothing that got released for mobile devices.
Oh, see, I want a computer. I want something like on Steam that I can download that has updated graphics.
You could have. It came out a while ago, but it was like a limited release, and you can't get it now.
Oh,
it was out, and now it's gone.
Oh, I want it again. Do it again.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. I think. So some of this like gaming talk is kind of made me feel like maybe at some point one of the things that we do, since we're kind of bringing it back to our movies and TV shows and whatnot, is maybe moving forward sometime in this year. And I think I had proposed the idea way back when we did Pokemon. Our original idea was we were going to do Pokemon and go back and play through Red and Blue together.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And we were going to play through that and then do a review. And I think we don't necessarily, we had changed our mind not to do that, as is our want, but I think might be well served if maybe we pick a game, Super Nintendo or NES or something that is like a game we can play together, like say Spider-Man, the side-scrolling one, like Spider-Man and Venom or Maximum Carnage, something like that.
Oh yeah, separation anxiety.
Yeah. Oh, the soundtrack for that, I believe, was Green Jelly. That's the name of the band. Yeah. Don't know why.
You know what might be fun,
but I think it might be good if maybe we do some research and see if we can get a hold of anybody from the game itself that we can interview. Maybe bring that in, and if not, at the very least, we play through it and give our thoughts and recommendations, especially now that more people are building Raspberry Pis, doing emulation and that kind of thing.
No, absolutely. I was actually
not that I'm recommending you illegally emulate anything, but
wink, nudge, nudge. No, what might be fun is maybe we can throw some of that stuff up on Twitch. We can maybe we can live play it.
Yeah, we could do that. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
And discuss through while we play.
Yeah, as we play, and we can bring up like memories. But yeah, this has been like an experimental phase that we've been playing with to see if
it's our college years. You just kind of experiment,
just doing whatever we want. It didn't mean anything.
Yeah,
But yeah, because this is stuff that we like talking about too. It's not just all video games. It's not just all cartoons. And
although there is a lot of that still, even when it's not. But yeah, games, cartoons, other stuff that we don't necessarily want to cover in this show.
I could talk about Knights of the Old Republic for like literally ever.
I know. Yeah, my problem is that the stuff that I want to talk about most of the time is like no longer cool. So
you know what's funny is Knights of the Old Republic, now that I'm thinking about it, also continues the horrible tradition of super shitty water levels.
Which does?
Knights of the Old Republic. Remember the stupid water level?
Oh, I like that level.
I hated that level.
Well, yeah, I always like the water levels.
I hate water temples. I hate water levels.
Yeah, Ocarina of Time, the water temple, I'm good at it. I'm the guy that, like, my friends and my brother would hand me the controller and have me do the water level. I like the water level. The water temples are always fun for me. I don't know why, but they just are. I know. I like them, and you can't stop me.
Yeah.
I think that'll do it for us this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We're back to our regularly scheduled nonsense.
Yeah, next week we have a request from a listener / fellow podcaster.
Yeah.
That is going to be a fun one that I think is a little bit thematically a bit of a break for us.
Yeah.
But is definitely a fun one. And we're shut up, butthead. So we are with the ACPN network.
Yeah,
and they also do Twitch over there as well. So maybe when we do that Twitch, we might go and do that there.
Yeah, and if you want to check out the other great shows on ACPN, you can go to theacpn.com. And you can see shows there like Adventure Club or Comedian Shame Eating in Drive-Thrus, Cosmic Cast-Off, Drunk on Disney, The Flux Capacicast, Rewind Cinema, the
yep.
Retro Cinema Podcast.
Punch Drunk TV.
Punch Drunk, yeah. So,
a bunch of these shows that are over there. We've mentioned them before.
Yeah, check them out. And if you want to check out our site, we're at childhoodremastered.com. You can see all of our old shows there. You can see them on iTunes and Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Childhood Remastered. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Childhood Remastered. We're at Twitter at RemasteredCast.
And we also have a phone number that we've only had one person utilize so far, but if you go to our website, we do have a phone number there that if you want to call and leave us a voicemail, we will play on the show. But if you really don't want us to, we won't. But yeah, we would recommend maybe leaving a voicemail message on what you want us to record and your memories of it. If you send us a request, absolutely feel free to do that. And when you do, if you can, maybe pick an episode for us to watch, although you don't have to do that either. So far, all the episodes we're going to be covering throughout from now until the end of May are requests, and there aren't specific episode requests, but if you have a specific episode request, throw that in there when you toss a request over. We'll be glad to toss that in.
Yes.
And I think for this week, that's it. Right?
Yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed this little diversion. Yeah, nostalgia diversion that we did. And so until next time, this is Sean
and Chris,
and this has been your Childhood Remastered. We will see you next time. Thank you, everybody, for coming on, and we will see you next time.